Hello, everybody. This is Meredith Loughran, and I am the Comic NEWB. Welcome to our 4 o'clock panel here. Today I have special guests, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. But our topic today is chasing trends, whether it's profitable or a waste of time. Let me get rid of this overlay here. Hello. I should have had everybody like Vogue. So let's just go around the room. Let's start with Brian. We'll go kind of clockwise here. Brian, Rodney, then Eric. We are expecting a couple other people. If they pop in, they have the link, so we'll let them introduce themselves as they come in. Go ahead, Brian. It's all yours.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm Brian K. Morris, Rising Tide Publications. Note the sophisticated graphics. We do comic books, but we primarily do books. If you like high concept and strong female characters, then we're your jam. Also, we do broadcasting Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We do an interactive talk show called Nevermind the Furthermore at 10 a.m. Eastern, and clever title pending. And we'll have a special one during Indie Event tomorrow, Saturday, the 11th at 3 o'clock, where we interview artist and writer Eric Hawkins. It's going to be a real fun time. And looking forward to being on the panel with you, Meredith. This is going to be a great, great time. Rodney, what do you think?
I think it sounds like a good time as well. I am Rodney Fike, half of Hasm Productions, and we do all ages book called Peanut Pudding and Jelly. This is the trade of the first 4 issues. It's just your kid siblings romp through their childhood and their experiences, believing that they're real superheroes. And there's issue 6 and there's issue 5. I am also the creator and writer of Roadkill Rampage, which is a Kickstarter that's kicking off on July 21st. So.
Oh, awesome! Make sure that you put the link in the private chat
for now.
We can. Yeah, make sure that you put your links in the private chat, and we'll share it out to our network also. Eric, hello. You are up.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Eric Hodson. I am a creator of Dreaded Dinosaur Man, which you can read over on webtoon.com, and there's a little preview right there. You can also find me on all the social medias at Dreaded Dinosaur. That's my handle. And I'm finishing up work on a Roddy Piper, The Kilted Avenger graphic novel, which will be releasing soon. And we're just about done with all of the art production on that. You can also find me at erichodson.com, where you can buy prints of my artwork and all of that lovely stuff.
Okay, and we have Rob Anderson.
That was sudden. You got to warn a person before you just throw them on a screen.
I did say no gotcha moments, but I lied.
People were like, "Oh my God, what is that?" They just startled me. You got to give like a warning. But you know what's really cool? What's really cool, kids? I have preloaded videos here now. How awesome is that? So, who's Mr. Anderson? This is Mr. Anderson. The very cool underground indie devil who creates books about fetish monsters and more, and who has a Kickstarter going right now, writtensinscomics.com. And I'm super excited to be here about chasing trends because I'm the opposition. I think chasing trends is wrong. So I want to see people change my mind. So I'm the instigator for today's events.
Okay. Rodney, hold on a second. Let me see if I can add him to this stream. He is having audio. Can you hear us, Rodney?
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear us? No? I don't. What
can you
what
hear me?
You?
Yes.
We hear you, yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I went out and came back in and still no audio.
I love
I
when
don't
Rob
do
gets
sign language.
technical.
I don't know sign language. So you know what? I am actually going to add Christian
I don't
to the
know.
stream.
Everything
I
was
don't
fine
know.
before.
Hello? What? I only see your eyebrows, Christian.
What happened there?
No,
All right, so-
all 13.
Oh,
so the
God, are you
topic today,
serious?
And I appreciate this. Almost feels like a break to me, but I know that it's not. This is a topic that is kind of near and dear, and I think important to creators, because we're talking about whether or not chasing trends is profitable, whether it's necessary, or whether it might be a waste of time. As a newbie creator, anybody who's coming in and watching, I know how I feel about trending topics and things like that. I always lean more towards evergreen type of posts and content and stuff.
Meredith, could you repeat that question again?
You hush.
Yeah, what was the question? What was the
question? I'm gonna do that. Because I have the power. So does Christian. And here comes Marion. All right. So Christian does really do a quick introduction of yourself. And, because, now we have...
All right, I'm going to go out and try to come back in and see if do that again and see if that works.
Okay. So now we have radio in here, and we also have Varian, who does Indie Vault Radio. Again, with chasing trends.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is it profitable, or is it a waste of time?
All the above. Thanks. All right, that's the end of the panel. Thanks for playing, everybody. Thanks for coming there. That was a really great show, guys.
Before we get to the topic, do a quick introduction of yourself.
Sure. My name is Christian Basil. I run the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS radio show at facebook.com/the Traveling TARDIS. Over 35,000 subscribers, and we are on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, Spreaker, CBSRadio.com, CBSRadiosRadio.com, and catch us weekly. We try to do as best as we can. Yeah, Brian's laughing at it. We do weekly radio shows talking about our favorite subject, Doctor Who, and everything out there that's in the Whoniverse.
Hey, and Varian, I know that you're in here.
I am.
Why don't you do a quick introduction, and then we'll get into the topic.
Well, sure. Hello, everyone out there. My name is Varian Grant. I am a comic book artist, publisher, writer, all that stuff. And I'm also the founder of Indie Vault Media LLC, which puts me in charge of IndieVault.com, Indie Vault TV on Roku, and Indie Vault Radio on Google and Apple. So yeah, that's my credentials, and that's why my mother's proud of me.
All right, you guys just missed Rob getting naked in the background here. How else am I going to get ratings? I can't get naked. There's no way.
That's my OnlyFans. Just my OnlyFans got to see that.
This is a Brian K. Morris show waiting to happen.
Oh no. So here we go. Chasing trends. I have my feelings about it, but I'd love to kind of go around the room and see how you feel, because again, we have radio in here, we have comic books, we have an author, a couple of authors, comic book creators and stuff like that. I know because Rob does it, and then with Peanut Pudding and Jelly, you're kind of like an all ages book. So that's not really, you're not really gearing towards any trend necessarily, but you're trying to reach a really tough demographic, I think. So we'll get to that in a second. But oh, look at that.
Oh, the puppy.
So school a newbie here. Okay. Do you think that it's profitable, Brian? What are your thoughts on chasing those trends?
Well, in book publishing, that's been an ongoing debate for decades. And is it profitable? Yeah, it is profitable as long as you're fast, because trends change so very quickly. Like if you say in January, if you were preparing an article about the state of conventions, and then February happened to all of us, then all of a sudden a lot of work goes out the window. I agree with you that work should be, evergreen, and even more, it should be something that you're passionate to write about, which may or may not be the trend. And something else I also point out to people, a good reason not to follow the trend is, like I said, the trend can change so quickly that by the time you get through the production process, the trend has long moved on. So it's best to do something that you are passionate about, something you are fired up about, and it may be niche, and that's fine, But the fact is, you should write what is in your heart. What burns you to get behind the keyboard and put it out there for the public, rather than just trying to chase the almighty dollar. And I think a lot of readers also will tell when you're pandering, which I see that as a version of.
Mhm.
And pretty soon, your immediate profit is going to go away because they know that basically you're a round heel and you're just chasing the dollar rather than genuinely trying to share a part of yourself with them.
Brian, if it burns, get cream for it.
I'm going to be clean on Meredith's show. I'm going to be a good boy. And I realize I'm fighting an uphill battle with you and Christian here. Now, who would ever thought I'd be the good guy?
Meredith's show is like the truck stop. Meredith should just rename this the truck stop with the guests that she has and with the mouse.
I need that. I need the dumpster fire gift that Brian.
After dark.
So, but Pops had something over here. It says, if nobody makes comics for kids, there will be no next generation. So do it. And again, that speaks to that. That's not necessarily a trend, but I think I don't even want to say a necessary evil because I agree. If we don't have comics for younger people, it's not because it's not because you're going after a demographic, I don't think. It's because of the love of the storytelling and speaking to that younger audience. I mean, there's a reason why we have children's book authors and illustrators who are geared more towards that the younger generation. I know my comic noob just poked Christian in the eye.
Well, also, Meredith, if I may, you mentioned something earlier, and our viewers are probably very curious about the graphic you were mentioning earlier. This is my show.
Let's figure out the inside.
Yeah, exactly. But basically a floating dumpster fire. That is me. So anyway, we return control of this program to you, Meredith. Thank you. I had to do that cheap shot there.
This is what happens when I give them the power. So Rodney, go ahead and tell us about, I guess, why you chose kind of an all ages book and some of the struggles that you've had. And I think within the book itself, do you go towards kind of trending topics, trending things, or is it kind of a like we're growing up together type of thing?
Okay. I don't gravitate towards trends. When I did fan art, yes. But as far as writing, when I created Peanut Pudding and Jelly, no. That it's a semi-autobiographical book. It's a very personal story for me. So it's from the heart. It's from personal experiences, and I don't really care about the trends because, as Brian said earlier, if you're not writing from a passion and from an experience, it's going to show. And a lot of people, when they see the all ages kids book, they're dismissive towards it because, oh, why do I want to read a kids book? And they're not realizing that there's true heart in these stories, even though they're the main characters are little kids. There's emotion and there's real life experiences behind that. And it grabs you. I think any story that moves you emotionally or makes you laugh or anything like that is valid as far as I'm concerned. So when I write these, each story comes from a personal experience from growing up with my brother and sister, and all the goofy little things that we did. So I feel that it's important to grab from that personal experience. And Tina and I, my wife, we have arguments all the time about, because I want to get more real. I want to tell a couple of blue stories about some things that happened that weren't so great. But since it is, a children's book, I'm told to steer away from that. But eventually I'd like to do that because, again, they are cute little kids in bright little costumes, but there's depth in those characters and there's depth in the stories. And I think that following trends is just a little too shallow for me, and I personally have no interest in it other than fan art. Yes.
And I actually want to toss the ball to Rob Anderson, because Cat Dad and Supermom actually deals with really tough topics like bullying.
Yep.
And it is an all ages book. And so how would you address what Rodney said about that, like getting kind of raw with the all ages and dealing with tougher topics?
Just do it honestly. It's really that simple. You do it honestly. You tell a good story. You tell a story you want to read. You stay within your skill sets. Don't try to reinvent anything if you're not comfortable with it. Like when I sit down to write a story, it has to be good to me. And so far, that hasn't failed me. The stories that I think are good to me are people enjoy. Sometimes they don't like the lettering. They don't like the art. But by the time they're done reading it, they admire what I've created. So the writing aspect's never been difficult. And when it comes to Cat Dad and Supermom, there's no difficultness when you're working with Raheel Mohsin and Chuck Pino. Both of them amazing, made this story amazing. And it speaks to things. That's why everyone who reads it kind of identifies. It's like Scooby-Doo. No matter how old you are, if you ever like Scooby-Doo, if you like Scooby-Doo now, if you've never seen it for the first time and you have a funny bone, you're going to enjoy Scooby-Doo. There's just something about it. And that's what we're supposed to create. That's why you don't chase a trend. Right now, I bet you 6 months from now, we're going to see pandemic stories left and right. Here's the problem. If we cure this pandemic, no one's going to want to read that. Go to look at comic book sales. After every war comic gets canceled because no one wants to talk about something when you're on the outside of it. You know, it's like going through a breakup. If you're going through a breakup, the last thing you want to read is a love story, right? That's kind of what it is. You got to walk away from it. But kids' stories have to be made because they have to invite in an audience that we're missing out on. We're not talking to kids. We're not talking to teens. We need to get more books in teens' hands. Comfortable stories. That's what there's going to be a sort of spin-off to Cat Dad and Supermom. We haven't talked a lot about it, but I'll give you guys a little hint about it. It's Fox and it's the Fox and the Wolf and the Fox.
Wolf and the Fox, right.
I'm still trying to get the which one comes first. We haven't fully decided. I think we're going with the Wolf and the Fox, or it could be the Fox and the Wolf. We'll decide that later. What's more important is the fact that the characters are like Cat Dad and Supermom, but aged for teenagers. So since we aged them, we wanted a different concept. So we're taking the creativity I used in Cat Dad and Supermom and bringing it to the next level for teenagers to be involved in, to talk about divorce. The couple is a divorced superheroes. So, and they were married. So imagine having to guard a city with your ex is basically the concept. And instead of them having a kid named Jax, the city is named Jax. So there's a lot of metaphors in it. There's a lot of a deeper conversation, but it doesn't cross a line. It invites teenage readers into it, and it educates them a little bit about social awareness. And we're going to be doing something where we're going to be teaching a bigger story and a bigger idea. And it's going to just be like Cat Dad and Supermom, where we taught morals with farts, except now we're going to teach it at an older age group that will hopefully entertain teenagers, because I want to write stories for every age group and every reader out there. But like Brian said, my fetish book can't go downward. It has its own unique market, and I understand that, and I respect it. I think the market's bigger than people give it credit for, but it still has its market. There are going to be people who see the fetish book and have just a visceral response sometimes and just demonize me for making that book. That's the reality of the life we live in as a creator. There are a lot of people who tried to put out fetish books right after 50 Shades of Grey, and it was the same crap. So like everyone's saying here, it has to be done right to catch a trend, and it has to be done within the time frame. You come out after the time frame. Look at The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead came out. How many people did zombie books? To this date, people are still trying to do zombie books.
It's one of those things. Yeah, it's one of those things that I really hesitate to do, because my book, even though I wrote the story 3 years ago, it's like, okay, it's a pandemic book. You know, but I do want to pass the potato to Eric, because I know that you have webtoons, and it's a very much more fast-paced. It's almost like the Twitter of comics, I want to say. Correct me if I'm wrong with that. But I think when I'm visiting there, a lot of the times it is kind of trendy. Sometimes it's about the latest news or events and things like that. Um, how are you as far as like when you're creating? Uh, are you kind of chasing the trends, or do you lean more towards evergreen content?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm chasing any trends. I have a specific plan for Dinosaur Man and a specific route that he's going to be traveling story-wise. And those are, grounded in eternal truths and, my libertarian values. And there's lots of instances, where, it's a hero's journey. He saves people groups that are being oppressed by, everything from space aliens to their own kind and so forth. And so I think that's something that speaks universally and is, I guess you could say, evergreen. As far as the trendiness of Webtoon, Webtoon itself has kind of set itself up as an episodic platform. There's a lot of binge reading. People, the content that's most successful there are people who have put out like a large breadth of episode, like you call them episodes, but like issues. And people just want to sit down and just like read through a whole bunch of it and be done with it, and just like they would binge watch on Netflix. So it's a completely different animal than the traditional comic book or graphic novel format. And I think it really is kind of the future of this visual storytelling medium that we love, as far as in the digital platform, because it scrolls just like your Facebook news feed. So it's it's already a natural feel and a better way of reading comics. I've always hated Comixology because I hated clicking on a panel, zooming it, having to rotate my phone sometimes. It's not a good experience. And so I think something like Webtoon definitely is definitely more along the lines of the future. And what my plan for it is that Dinosaur Man has an adventure on Webtoon, and that stays on Webtoon, and then everything can branch off into traditional comic books, into a video game, into a cartoon series, and all of these pieces of the puzzle build on one larger story. We were talking about kids content. Dinosaur Man's definitely young adult and kid friendly, but adults are going to enjoy it too, because it does deal with serious topics. Like the first 2 episodes, we're introduced to the character, and he's dealing with this idea that he thinks he doesn't know to think of himself as a man or a monster, because he's got equal things pulling at him in both that. So it's indicative of the human struggle, where every single one of us can think of our deepest, darkest thoughts and say, well, I'm a monster. But then we try to be good. We try to be what we think a human should be. And that's his struggle going forward.
And now we have Christian here, who has a radio show on iHeartRadio, and we have Varian Grant with Indie Vault Radio. And so that's totally different type of medium. Where do trends come in as far as that? Because Christian, you have stuff where, like with your Doctor Who, you've got decades of content that you can kind of bring up. Whereas with Indie Vault, don't get me on the terrible, terrible movie that he subjected us to. But you're trying to launch a radio program, and I don't know, are you 24/7 at this point, Varian?
Yeah, 24/7. See, the thing is, I don't know much about trends. I'm a futurist, Meredith. No, but in all honesty, yeah, we're 24/7, 7 days a week. It's having the content on the radio, because we treat the radio and the TV as separate, entities, and they are. I mean, they're 2 different platforms that happen. Unfortunately, I wish they could overlap, but they don't. But for the radio, yeah, I mean, we made an early decision to play independent music, and that has bit me in the butt a few times, because independent musicians are kind of difficult to deal with. Because what I find is that a lot of them, they're just like we are with our creations. They're concerned about where it's going to be heard, where it's going to be, is it going to be used? Are they going to be missing out on money? because it's being played, and they want to know. And you give them information, and you tell them, listen, tune in. And some of them are really happy with it. Other ones will tell me after 3 months, oh, it's not working out for me. Could you pull me off the network? But for me, content has been I think content creation has been one of the biggest struggles we had. But I think that now it's starting to become the trend is that I'm starting to see people actually warm up to it. I'm getting people who are writing me saying, hey, can I put an ad on your station? Because our listenership keeps going up. Eric has laughed at me. I know that Rob has laughed at me when we hit higher numbers. We've been recently climbing. I think it used to sit at, gosh, it started off maybe like at a couple hundred people. Then it was 1,000. And then one day someone said something stupid on the show, and it climbed, and it's been climbing ever since. And we got up to 47,000 people listening live across different platforms, because it's global. That's the other thing too. It's global. It's all over. If the country is foolish enough to let our airwaves in, we're there. And so we have 47,000 people listening, and that was good. So hopefully, and people now are realizing that, and they want to put their ad for their, Indiegogo or their Kickstarter campaign, or even their website on it. I have someone who recently told me when cons start back, they want to advertise what cons they're going to be at on the radio station, which is going to be interesting. Because what if your table number changes? Oh my God.
Thank goodness for virtual. And I'm going to circle back to you because I know that you also draw and write comic books, and with the Comic NEWB, I love that we have this broad spectrum of people, because I think it's relevant to any creator, not just in comic books. So I think this is a really good topic to have, and I honestly wish we had more than an hour, because we're almost halfway through it. Christian, I'm going to circle back to you because, and then I'll get back to Rodney, but when we were talking about this, with as far as your content, again, with Doctor Who, you're very specific, obviously. It's a Doctor Who radio show, and you have decades of content that you can talk about. Technically, that's not a trend,
Well, it depends upon the trend. First of all, I got to agree, Brian's right. When it comes to trends, especially on a podcast, it's basically first come, first serve. You want to be on the bandwagon as soon as especially when we're doing it. It depends. Like if we're doing a review of an episode, we don't want to be the one that comes out 2 weeks later talking about that episode when everybody else has talked about it, because now we're just falling behind. So it really depends on the trend. That, yeah, it depends upon the speed of the time that you reach it, because if you don't, then you're just falling behind, and nobody, you kind of fall into the ocean of others. There's millions of podcasters out there, and I'm sure as soon as an episode or a topic or a news article comes out over there, everybody's got an opinion about it, and you've got to be the first one out there. Ironically, I will mention this because we talked about this earlier, and speaking of trends, we got mentioned in Screen Rant. Never thought that was going to happen, but it was interesting that one of those highly social media, those social medias that talk about geekdom and stuff like that. Well, the article, when we appreciate it because they mentioned us. However, they're 2 to 3 months, Johnny come lately, because we put that episode out a couple of months ago, and other people had picked at it. Gary from Nerdrotic, Neon from Clownfish TV, they had mentioned it when it first came out there, and I believe there were some others, but it was nice to get them mentioned. But again, that was like 2 months ago, and when we posted it, quite a few people are going like, wait a minute, were we still talking about this? And it had, if anybody knows about it, it had to deal with the episode of The Timeless Child and the Cartmel Master Plan. But trends have to be expeditious. You have to be on top of it, or else you're going to be falling behind. And here's one joke that includes my wife, is that because we were going to try to start selling merchandise, and one of the things I was looking at is buying masks with the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS logo on it. And my wife just comes up to me and she goes, I got a question for you. Before you buy that, what if they find a cure tomorrow? Exactly. Brian's reaction, just like, okay, that trend has completely ended because now there is a new equation put in, and that trend is completely useless. So yeah, timing is everything. And plus, when it comes to like merchandise, what kind of risk are you willing to take? Anything, if I go into anything merchandise wise that I'm selling, I'm always in the mindset that I am taking a loss. Whatever I just bought, I am totally eating, can I eat it? And if I don't sell anything, it's on my onus to try to sell it or somehow give it rid of it as a prize. So in the field of podcasting and especially with merchandising, yes, trends are everything. We're ambulance chasers because once that wave goes down, no point about anybody wanting to listen to us. Once it's gone through a million podcasts, nobody wants to listen to us anymore. Or if they do, because they want it, hopefully they're fans and they want a different take.
Okay. So Rodney, going to you then, with the all ages type of book, and it's not like I'm trying to look into a crystal ball, into your life and your characters and things like that. But as they age and things like that, there are things that we are dealing with in the here and now that kind of feels like a trend. Is that something that you intend to kind of incorporate into your work, or are you really, like you said earlier, you just, a lot of these stories are internalized, things that that you may have addressed, things that you may have gone through, and this is your way of expressing that?
Yeah, looking at the crystal ball of my mind, no, it's all going to be experience-based stuff. Um, I, I'm just not a big. The trend is not for me. It has to be organic. If it's not organic, I can't write convincingly about it, and the passion's just not there. So yeah, I mean, and as far as down the road, when the kids get a little bit older, there's a story that I want to tell that was very traumatic. But we'll get to figure out how to tell that story, because I still want to tell it. I've never envisioned doing the kids up until the point where they become adolescents. I kind of like to keep them, 6, 7, 8 years old. To me, that's still the magical age when your imagination is still firing on all cylinders and Santa Claus is still real and the capes and the masks are still real. So I envision telling, those genuine, innocent stories from that perspective. But I just don't, I don't pull from trends. I just don't. I think it's cheating. I think it's lazy. So I don't, and I don't need to, because at the risk of sounding arrogant, I've got plenty of stories in my head that I can pull from, that I really don't need to pull from trends. Like I said before, if somebody comes and wants me to draw a Superman at a show, that's fine. But as far as creating my own stuff, I'm not a trend chaser.
Well, so I want to. Sorry, did you have more on that? I'm sorry.
No. I was hoping that I answered the question.
Oh, yeah,
enough.
So, like, the reason why I left Cindy's comment and question here is because I wanted everybody to have a chance to read through it. There are slower moving trends. Example, I don't think racial tensions or LGBT is going away anytime soon. There have been lots of fussing in some writers groups about that sort of thing. What are your opinions? Let's just go around the room. Real short answer, like keep it like 2 minutes. Brian.
Oh, that's going to be a challenge for me.
Right.
Yeah, timer's off. No, that's a very good point. And there are some themes, though, that are universal. I mean, yes, we could talk about the current situation outside our doors right now. But also there are a lot of the stuff that we see as so-called trends aren't really new. For instance, the story I'm writing right now is leading up to the pandemic of 1918, the flu pandemic of the 1920s. so that's kind of an ongoing thing. Terrorist attacks are not new. Strange diseases are not new. So that again is why I'm thinking, and also, something I was thinking, a little side here, from we could use these so-called trends as springboards for other types of stories. For instance, when this whole pandemic started, I started looking at the news and thinking this would make a great fantasy story. Except this isn't a germ; it's an errant black magic spell. And that's the sort of thing. It's like the way that they twisted Romeo and Juliet to create West Side Story. I still think that the idea is to create something that's fresh from maybe a trend that, again, could go away tomorrow. That was an excellent point Christian brought up about the face masks. And how many of us are doing things that are maybe set in today, but we started working on them before the pandemic started? I'm writing a romance novel that takes place before then. And now what do I do when I pick that up? I've had to put it aside. What do I do? Do I put everyone in face masks? Do I, make sure that the couple in question stays 6 feet apart? This is why we've got to look evergreen, and maybe not try to maybe try to predict the future if you can, but otherwise just stay with the stuff that is eternal. And I think when you talk about personalities and when you talk about affairs of the heart, that's the stuff that really means something to people at their deepest level. That's the stuff that's going to stick around for the longest time.
Mm-hmm. Christian, how about you?
Well, this is actually going to be coming from a writer perspective. As far as trends concerned, you take the risk of pigeonholing yourself into a situation that you can't get out of, meaning that you take a risk of taking your story and making it timed, or if somebody comes up with a better term, they're stuck in its own time. I meant, take a movie like Airplane, which I love and endure, and it's one of the best movies I think is out there. Give it to somebody in 2020, it's an SJW nightmare. It's just like, it doesn't work in this time. The jokes may not work in this time. Hello, they're picking up, phone booths. What is that? You take the risk of pigeonholing yourself and making the story. Now, will it be timeless? I don't know. If people have to understand the humor and the storyline and what's going on, and things have changed. My God, Airplane 2 was about the space shuttle. Where's that thing at right now? These are things that if you go with a trend, you take a risk of putting yourself in a position where your story, or at least the appreciation of the story, could get you in a situation where people cannot relate to as time goes on. I have a joke in one of my plays, which was called The Christmas Story, the Christmas play, The Untold Story, which was an idea of what would happen if the National Enquirer were around during biblical times, and how would they report on the Bible at some point. Yeah, Brian knows that one over there. But one of the jokes, which can be timeless, is that the angels come up to the characters who they're trying to tell them to go to this stable, and they accidentally say, "He who is born of the Virgin Mary," and the characters look at each other like, wait a minute, born of the Virgin Mary? That's something that even later on that joke can work out because it's already established. There's nothing that needs to be changed. It's not a bell-bottom issue. It's not a face mask issue. It's something that is already established and can probably, hopefully work when, 300 years from now, if somebody unearths that book. But that's the concern of a trend. I think a trend is something that probably gets you up. It's more of, it's just a wave and a crest down, whereas something that was evergreen goes up and keeps riding and may continue to ride. It might crest down, but that wave has the intent, has the kinetic energy to come back up again if it's revisited and the right people are going out there at the right time. But something maybe that's, the face masks. What if there is a cure? Then my book is pointless, whatever I write on that.
Rob, you there? What
I
are
am. I'm just,
as far
hold
as
on.
Cindy's?
I'm a little confused. Are we supposed to take the most amount of time we can to answer this question, or the shortest amount of time? I got a little confused here with the last two answers.
I'm a podcaster. I'm sorry.
I was vaccinated with the phonograph needle, which is not evergreen.
And neither one of them can stop. They just have to keep going right now. So my short answer is this. Social awareness, Cindy, that's what you're seeing. You're not seeing a trend. Slowly, these topics are becoming more mainstay, more mainstream. It's not that they're a trending topic. It's that they're becoming part of our culture as they should be. So more awareness is put towards them. A trend would be dinosaurs that hunt humans. That's what I'm waiting for. I want to see dinosaurs hunting humans. That would be a trend. But LGBTQ, racial equality, those aren't trends. Those are necessities in our culture that are finally being grown into all of the creative things we do. I yield my time to Rodney.
Oh, are you skipping Eric?
No, we'll get to him.
Oh, okay.
I'm dyslexic. I went the wrong way.
That's okay. I mean, I pretty much echo what everybody is saying. Is it's okay to pick from things that are topical currently, but once again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. I just feel that well, like what Christian said, if you're jumping on a topical thing and you don't deliver right away, it doesn't apply. 3-4 weeks down the road, it's a moot point. So I don't know. I just I'm sticking to the organic stuff. Like Brian said, it's the tropes that are consistent with everybody's shared experiences. Everybody did the same things when they were kids, and it's relatable no matter what age you are. It's everybody can relate to it. So that's my 2 cents.
Varian, how about you?
Yeah, I don't really, those type of trends I really don't follow. I will say this as an African American man who was married to a woman who identifies as bi. She and I get a little tired when the trend is connected to racial tensions and the LGBTQ. Sometimes it comes across as pandering. And some of those trends are, I've seen some stories lately that have been ridiculous. And sometimes that stuff comes across a little too heavy-handed. And if you go into that, you may find yourself actually getting smacked by the very people or the very culture you're trying to uplift. Even if you are of that culture, I've seen it backfire horribly on people. And you just sit back and get your popcorn and you watch that dumpster float down the road. But yeah, so that's one of the others are chasing their trend. It becomes outdated, and you have to be very careful because you could find yourself the target of the very thing you're trying to, fight for. So yeah, no trends for me. Again, I'm always trying to look ahead, and sometimes, sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. A lot of times I'm wrong, but yeah, no trends for me.
All right, Eric, how about you? To Cindy's question.
Well, what I would say is that you don't want to do anything that's going to possibly alienate half your audience, or you don't want to, as Varian was saying, do something that's going to be seen as pandering. So it really boils down to: is there a universal theme connected, and is it serviced by the story? Does it actually add to the story? We've got to take our creations seriously and not just use them as like a political pamphlet, which we see all too much in culture now. There's like virtual signaling abounds, and you'd have to be a dullard not to be able to see through it for that. I'm not going to go out and buy a certain brand of shoes just because they decided to align with me politically for a short period of time. Why would you do that with your precious creations? So look at how does it serve the story. If it doesn't serve the story, leave it out. Or if there's some sort of universal truth, some things like Rob had kind of alluded to, then how do you write that to be a part of the story and not just stick out like a sore thumb, for example?
For my own experience, I am a fiction writer. I do research. I love to write on a broad array of topics, and I'm not limited to anything really, as long as I have the capacity to do the research or interview people and things like that. So I don't feel like I need to tie myself to any one type of thing. And so if somebody were to say, "Oh, well, you have a gay character in your book, shame on you," I'm like, well, I know gay people. I'm really good friends with them, and I support the community and stuff like that. So why are you throwing dirty looks my way and all that stuff? It doesn't make sense, because as creators, and I think especially in comic book creators, the more that I'm learning, with the history and everything, a lot of it has been, like war propaganda and stuff. If you're going back to like World War II, World War I and stuff, Brian, you could probably speak to this. And so it's up to the creators who have literally the cojones to put that voice out there and talk about some of the hard stuff, because it's really weird. This is what I'm finding, is that because people think it's a comic book, the ones that don't necessarily read them or follow them, they just think of it as like kids play, and they don't really think of it as messaging.
Right.
And I think that as creative people, not just in comic books, but in writing and in music and in movie making, we we maybe fall into those trends of what's happening because we want to sell those books, but at the same time, we have to understand that our voice is much bigger when we put it in print or we put it on the airwaves, and we have to be a little bit more responsible about that. For me, I've written for trends and stuff, but it's usually as a ghostwriter, and my name's not associated to it. You know, I don't know if that's a crappy thing to do, because there's tons of junk out there. But Brian, what can you speak to that, as far as like being a bigger voice, and kind of like that propaganda arm, I want to say.
Right. Well, comics have always represented the era in which they were produced. Like back in World War II, like you said, America had this very antagonistic view of our enemies, and they were frequently drawn in that manner. Plus, we came from the days of the minstrel shows, so even the strongest of African American characters wound up looking like a caricature as a result. And it wasn't really till the '60s, and people like Stan Lee and Robert Kanigher started portraying these people as just that, people. And I think that as long as you do your research, you listen, and bring it into your heart, and ignore the stereotypes, and there's stereotypes abounding, not just racial or sexual, but cultural. It's that, it covers the whole gamut. And as long as you keep your heart open and your mind, and again, drill down to the essence of what we share in common, and still celebrate our differences that make us unique, I think that is where you won't go wrong, really, as a creator. And yes, we've had some comic books that we're still apologizing for. And that's a good thing. We should always apologize for those comics, because we have evolved past that, hopefully, and will continue to evolve as the years go on.
Does anybody else have anything to say as far as like being, is propaganda arm, is that too strong a term?
I don't think so. I mean,
No, especially if you're trying to sell an ideology. Yeah, that's propaganda. Whichever side of the aisle you want to sell an ideology on, if that's what you're doing, is creating a sales pitch and being dishonest, then yeah, it's propaganda.
If I can jump on Varian's note, and I don't want to speak for Varian, but I want to get on top of that. I meant the one issue that seems to be, going on top of the word pandering. And here was a great example when Star Trek decided to make Sulu gay. And even George Takei's coming out and goes, that's not the character. I mean, I appreciate you guys doing that, but that's not the character. Where does the line start, go from pandering to this is part of the natural characterization? This person is this color or race or creed or sex because of A, B, and C. Why can't it just be part of the national progression instead of pandering to pandering? Because the problem with pandering is people catch it and going like, you're not doing this for the right reasons.
Yeah.
You're not doing it for the story. You're doing it because you want to say, hey, look at me, I'm the good guy. No, that's not the case. And if you want to have good characterization, stick with the characters or make a character that we can appreciate, that we can feel and not just one person or a certain group of people, everybody. Because if you're trying to get your story out there, the best stories will encompass everybody. The best stories will not make me feel that I'm learning a lesson. The best stories will make me feel that I was listening to a great story. At the same time, there was a lesson in there that I can appreciate. That even the person who has the most cynical doubts and probably has the most wrong ideas and influence can be influenced for that moment. Say, you know what? I was wrapped in a great story. I didn't think about this, but now I'm looking at this in a different light. And I think those are the best science fiction comic books out there, where I can take you into my world and show you what is wrong. And I can open your mind, and I don't insult you, and I don't berate you. I bring you into my world and say, I just want you to come in with an open mind. And I think that's the revolution that comic books have had, or should be in that direction. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I remember when that Mark Steven Johnson, Ben Affleck Daredevil movie came out. Friends of mine were very excited that Michael Clark Duncan was playing the Kingpin, and they were, high-fiving each other, and they were like, well, yeah, man, the Kingpin's a black dude. This is gonna be. They should make him black in the comics, and this is gonna change some things. And I said to them, and they quickly looked at me and called me a couple of names that I won't repeat here. But I said, so wait a minute, you mean to tell me they took the Kingpin, the biggest criminal in the city, and they made him a black man, and we're celebrating this?
or can we celebrate that Duncan was an awesome character?
Oh,
he was an awesome villain. I'm just like, damn, dude, that's some acting.
Yeah.
That's some real tough acting then. And it's just like, that's what I want to see.
He did well.
It doesn't matter who's playing it. I want to see something really good. And he owned that role.
Yeah, but sometimes I think we just put too much behind, like if you need a character to look like you to identify with him, Batman does not need to be black. I identify with his choices that he's made, even though they're a little crazy. I don't know if I dress as flying rodent and come on buildings, but I identify with him. I don't need Batman to look like me to identify with him.
Well, you hit on a very important point there. There's so much more to us than skin color, what we do behind a closed door, or where we go on Sunday mornings, or we're a cosmopolitan of all of these different things, and we can share experiences and be a good example to someone who's disagrees with us on 99% of our opinions, but because we share a lot of these common things, there's story there, there's richness there. And another big problem with the pandering culture is that we turn ourselves into 2D superficial caricatures of a piece of something we shouldn't even be part of. It really shouldn't even be our identity. To frame it on one thing, like skin color, for example, that's a shallow, superficial thing to identify as. You're a human being, you're a person, you're an American citizen. There's so much more to you than superficial elements.
Although there is a danger in all this pandering. Remember, the people usually using the word pandering are the people who not necessarily geared towards that market and don't get it. Perfect example, Brokeback Mountain was called Pandering. Became a really good movie that a lot of people stayed away from. The people who often are using the word pandering aren't the target audience, and we're forgetting that. Sometimes it's just finally the right time to tell a story. You tell me Sulu's gay on Star Trek, I'm okay with that. Yeah, you tell me Iceman's gay, I associate with that. I see that. Those are characters that is believable. And I think we're forgetting that we're getting creators for the first time who are bisexual, who are gay, who are openly gay, mind you, able to write those characters, and maybe they're seeing something in those characters we never saw before. Maybe it's just a different point of view, and we want to instantly jump to pandering. It's a dangerous slope to call something pandering. I just want to urge people to not say something is pandering until you saw it. Like Michael Duncan being Kingpin made sense. That man was huge, he was powerful, and a great actor. I don't think they ever casted him other than anything for his actual talent. You know, and I think
Oh, no, see, I wasn't saying they had them.
no. I know. I'm agreeing with you. I'm pointing out there was a moment that was absolutely no pandering. But during that same time, Marvel was accused of pandering and picking him for that moment. We have to be very careful what we call pandering, because that could be a very quick, ugly word to cancel recognition of a community, a culture, an idealism that we don't normally see, and we should be open to seeing it if it makes sense. Pops Van Zandt pointed out Nick Fury. Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson came in. People were mad about that. You don't remember that now. People were pissed until the moment he acted. The minute he acted it, everyone was like, oh, yeah, I get it now.
Because we've only got about less than 5 minutes, I want Christian to have a chance, because the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS, the special episode, is on in the next hour. And so I want to give him a chance to say goodbye to our audience, tell us where we can find you again, and then tune in to his show next.
Just like 5 minutes, yeah. Facebook, travelingtardis.com. Check us out there. We're about to do a show in about 5 minutes, so check us out there. And we'll drop all the links and such when you go to facebook.com, the Traveling TARDIS. So thanks, everybody. This was a good talk. This is really good talk. I wish we could continue further, but I got to run. Got to show my own.
Well, we're going to ignore your show. Bye, Christian.
Bye.
Get out. Okay, and I do actually want to close up, because I don't want to stomp on his show. I really hope that the people who are tuning in will watch. If you're watching on the replay, it doesn't matter, because you can watch the replay and watch the entire episode. And on that note, let's close it up. Final thoughts, and then let us know where we can find you. Brian K. Morris.
Okay, final thoughts. Oh, so many. Basically, don't chase the trend. Be the trend. Be original. Come up with your own ideas, and write from the heart. And it's where you can find me, Rising Tide Publications, where we do all kinds of really cool books, adventure, fantasy, romance, horror, all kinds of stuff. You name it, we got it. Just come to Amazon or Smashwords and I'll take care of you. How's that? Anyway, we also have a page on Facebook, Rising Tide Publications, where we post new stuff every day. RisingTide.pub is our website, where you can sign up for our free monthly newsletter. Yes, I refer to myself in the plural because I contain multitudes. And never mind, the Furthermore is on 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Central, where it's an interactive talk show and we let you promote yourself. Also, Clever Title Pending is a show where we talk about creativity and the business behind it. It regularly runs Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, but we're doing a special one tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern for Indie Vent. And we're going to have the great Eric Hawkins on with us to talk about publishing and being creative and just being pretty darned awesome. Anyway, thank you for having me here, Meredith. Rob, how about you?
Hey, everybody. I'm going to be here all weekend. We have to get out of everyone's hair, so just check me out. I'm on plenty of shows. You'll be able to find out where to follow me. Just follow all the things on Indie Event and enjoy yourselves. I'll see you in the next show, just at 6 o'clock, as a matter of fact.
Tonight at 9 o'clock, part of Indie Event is The Art of War. I'll be hosting. Hopefully we'll have some awesome artists competing for an actual prize. And you can check that out later on tonight at 9 o'clock. My name is Eric Hodson. Go to erichodson.com and you can find all the ways to get in touch with me there and read Dare the Dinosaur Man on web too.
Okay, I'm Rodney Fike, and you can find me in all that I do at Hazm.com. That's HAZZUM.com. And I actually will be doing a live draw tonight with my buddy Sean Forney. You go to Sean Forney's page on Facebook, and you can check that out. It starts at 8 o'clock, and we're going to have a few special guests joining us tonight. So check out me and all that I do at Hazm.com, and I'll keep it at that because we want to let everybody go to Christian show.
Thank you.
I'm Varian Grant, and when you're writing, remember to write to entertain yourself first. That's probably the best advice I can give you. I will be doing a special tomorrow at 8 o'clock, special Indie Vote Live. 1 hour show, very quick, very concise, just like I do everything else in life. I will see you guys tomorrow.
And I'm Meredith Loughran. I am the comic noob, but I will not be the noob for long. It's not a forever title. It is just for the here and now, which is not technically a trend. But I wanted to thank everybody who is on the panel today. This was a topic that I think is really important, and I would love to revisit this again with the same people, where we're not so constrained with time and passing the potato to the next person. And on that note, I want to thank you so much for being here, part of the Comic Noob. I am with the Comic Book Advocates Network, and you can find me at indievent.com and all over the place. Just Google me. I put my full name here. Look at that. So you know how to spell it. On that note, guys, have a great day. Enjoy IndieVent. Make sure that you like it, share it, spread the word, be a participant, leave comments, and let's grow this thing. It's all about networking. Love you guys. Thank you so much.